into senior level executive positions. I'm your host, Alex Tremble, award-winning speaker, author, and leadership expert with over a decade of experience coaching and advising some of our nation's most senior level government leaders. So if you're ready to reach your goals, let's get started.
Hey, welcome, you ambitious, beautiful people, to another power-packed episode of The Executive Appeal. I am your host, Alex D. Tremble, and I am thrilled to have you join us today. This is the podcast where we go beyond the ordinary, moving past the cliches of just work hard to actually uncover the true secrets of success at the executive level. And by the way, you all know where I'm going with this. This show is top 10% in the world, and it's not by accident by any means, because of you, because of your support, because of your engagement, and in order to continue sharing the gospel that we share, sharing the advice and stories and all the learnings we do, we need your help and your continued help. So here's my ask for you today. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. If you haven't done so already, might as well go in and click like on this, because you already know you're going to like this episode because you're here. Like, share your thoughts in the comment section. As you have questions, please put them in there. We want to hear from you. And then again, the continued success of this show is completely dependent on you and your engagement. So we completely appreciate you in advance. And as you know, I'm not just your host. I am also an international keynote speaker and executive coach. So if you're seeking an engaging and motivating speaker for your next event, then look no further. I've had the privilege of addressing audiences around the world, such as Microsoft and many federal agencies. What we bring to the table is not just information and insight, but it goes into the long-lasting, impactful advice and strategies that will help you and your audience reach your goals. So whether it's developing meaningful relationships with your teams, your mentors, your clients, your fellow executives, or if it's focusing on providing your audience with the strategies required to achieve exceptional results in the face of life's complex challenges, we've got you covered. Don't miss out your opportunity to elevate your next event and your team and your stakeholders' potential. Visit alextremble.com and book me today to speak at your next event so we can equip your audience with the tools they need to achieve exceptional results. Let's make your next event unforgettable together. Now, with no further ado, can I say today is a good day? See, today we have with us the amazing and always super slick Mr. Jamail D. Carter. See, Jamail currently serves as the Vice President of Academic Affairs at San Jose City College. Prior to this role, he served as the Dean of Academic Affairs at Los Angeles Community College District and the Vice President of Student Services at Los Angeles Southwest College. How are you doing today, kind sir?
I am phenomenal. It's good to be here on the Executive Appeal podcast and be able to talk to you and hopefully share some nuggets of wisdom that will impact and transform your many listeners who are watching globally.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to just put one more piece of information on the board. You are, again, if I'm wrong, let me know if I'm wrong. You are a pastor as well?
Yes, I pastor Greater Blessings in the city of San Bernardino, California, where I've been pastoring going on 12 years, where I've been the senior pastor there.
So here's my first question. We live in a time where there are many things that are kind of off limits, but not off limits. People get offended, people get all kinds of different things. Again, I can say this because of my podcast. The question is, how do you or do you not integrate what you do, your philosophy from a pastoral standpoint, into your leadership ability, your leadership style, as you're making huge, significant moves throughout your career, throughout your life?
Man, that is a phenomenal question. I actually thank you for that question, because who I am is ingrained, not just inside, but it naturally projects out. And so I think when I look at who understanding my purpose, understanding the assignment that I feel God has placed me here on earth to do, one of the monikers that I share with people is that, I'm the greatness awakener. God has placed me to awaken greatness in the lives of my parishioners, in the lives of my coworkers and colleagues, in terms of the students who I come into contact with. I see them as God sees them in the future. And I think sometimes people can be overwhelmed. They can feel like throwing in the towel. They can feel as though there's no hope, there's no direction, there's no guidance. And naturally, I come alongside people and really showcase them that there is a better future for them if they're willing to really dig deep and truly accept who they are. Many times when people find themselves stuck in mediocrity, be it organizations, be it churches, people in general, it's because they forgot to see who they are capable of becoming. And so my job, both secular as well as within the church, is to awaken people and remind them just who they're capable of becoming. And so I showcase that everywhere I'm at. And one of the things I will also say is kind of interesting, because many times colleagues of mine don't quite realize I'm a pastor until they connect with me on LinkedIn. And on Sundays, chances are we do have our sermons go live on some of my social media. And then I get colleagues come up to me and say, wow, you're a pastor, you're a believer, very inspiring, very encouraging sermon you had on Sunday. And it really resonates with many of them.
It's interesting. As you were sharing, especially the social media part, I think I was sharing this story. I'm not sure if it was on another recent podcast or not, but the fact that pastors are people too. Religious figures are people too. And I say that in the same breath that I say that executives are people too. I think that many people who I come in contact with, and again, I even stop myself from sometimes, like I'm talking to someone having a good old time and like we're laughing, we're joking, and I hear they're a pastor. I'm like, oh my God, did I say something inappropriate? Like, and then they're like, you chill, like, we're just having a conversation. That way that some people feel about, religious figures, they feel the same way about executives. And again, the people who are watching this show are either already executives or want to get that next level, which is the executive ranks. And there is sometimes a sense like those people have like that type of thing, because they're in that spot. They must be better than me. They must be smarter than me. There must be something more than me. So I need to watch every word I say. And I have to kind of really filter myself in order to not step, with my foot in my mouth, versus kind of maybe just being who you authentically are with some reservations, and trying to establish a relationship with that person, not that quote unquote position.
I think for me, I try to tell people to be authentic, because if you're not authentic, you're not real. You're not going to grow. You're not going to thrive as an individual if you cannot be who you are. And so my approach to my faith is, the life I lead should point people to my Creator. I think when you're in any leadership role, it starts with service. I have no problem rolling up my sleeves for, my direct reports or my parishioner, seeing that, I can get in the trenches with you because I have that understanding of what you're going through. For those who are Christians, there's a passage of text. And actually, one of my favorite texts of scripture is the one that says Christ came to serve, not be served. And there is the story of him humbling himself, getting on his knees and washing his disciples' feet. I feel that there are so many leaders that are overseeing groups of people where there is a lack of motivation, there's a lack of inspiration, because the leader has made it about him or her and not about the people they work with. When your people who you work with understand you care, they will go the distance for you and for your customers and for your students, whatever your industry is, because they know you truly care about them and you just don't see them as a number.
You know, it's okay. I'm going to go somewhere that I'm going to try to not tread lightly. I'm going to try to walk this thin line, because I know I can get myself. I know I'm going to get people, saying something to me about it. But I'm going to try. Let's just see if I can do it. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. You're talking about servant leadership, and I 100% agree with that. The vast majority of the leaders I work with are servant leaders, and their problem is not that they don't care about their staff. The problem is that they put their staff and those other people around them so far ahead of themselves that they burn out themselves, that they're not reaching their own personal goals, that they're not feeling like anyone cares about them, and so on and so forth. So how do you walk that line when you're not being the a-hole who's only in it for himself or herself, and you're not being the person who doesn't do anything for themselves, you're only focused about everyone else? How do you walk that line?
There's a concept that I read somewhere, and I think it may have been, I'm not sure. I was going to say a Christian life coach who talks about this, but then I'm like, I don't want to misattribute it to him, and it's not in his book and it's somewhere else. So I've done so much reading, but there's this concept talking about the triangle of balance, and this is good for anyone, because yes, we have our vocations, we have the places in which we go for employment, our jobs. That should have a significant piece of who we are. But then also your family relationship is critical. It is your family that helps to recharge you. It's your family that many times points you back to your why, be it, sending your child to, private school, or making sure that there's food and, the cupboards and then the refrigerators and things of that nature. And then you have your faith, which is also there to strengthen you when you're vulnerable and in your weakest moments. If you're balancing those things, you will not burn out, because, if the only thing you identify with is your job, you are going to burn out. But if you're spending time with your family is that recharging station. Your faith is your recharging station. And, when we go back to scripture, we see Christ on numerous times, pulled away from the crowd, pulled away from his disciples and those that were surrounding him. And he would go on a retreat, if you will, to recalibrate with the Father. So those are biblical principles that if we apply today, will help us. You cannot work 365, you just can't do it. You're going to go insane. And then, I think if you get that triangle of balance together, you will not burn out.
Can I add on another leg to your stool? So then we have your faith, we have your, let's say, your professional life, you have your family, and then I would like to add on self, because, again, at the time of this recording, we just had Mother's Day pass recently. And, it was, I spoke to so many mothers just about the experience and what's going on, because this is our first Mother's Day. And,
congratulations.
Folks, thank you so much, guys, sir. Well, I guess it goes to my wife. Let's go. But what many mothers wanted was just time alone. and time for, I mean, yes, they love their family. Absolutely. They have their faith and they love they love their job. They're doing their job, but they just wanted something for themselves. And I think it's so easy in today's, I want to talk about this. It's really easy today to feel like focusing on yourself is selfish, and or you, you're self-centered. But I do think the self is important because yes, you are a member of your family. You are a member of your church. You are a member of your job, where you work. But you're also an individual person who has needs, want, desires, and needs space as well.
Yeah, I definitely can see your thought process on the self. I think, and it really has to pull back because I do think there are people who are selfish to the nth
Absolutely.
degree, where that becomes a problematic state.
Mm-hmm.
Because then those are the parents that it's not about my child, it's about me. As long as I'm satisfied and I'm taken care of, you figure it out on your own, and that can create trauma for young children growing up. So I do think understanding who you are and taking time for yourself is important. But I think, and I guess this is where being authentic is also important, because if you understand your purpose, you will find yourself where you can plug in, and what motivates someone else may be different than what motivates me, but that really takes time with understanding who you are.
I mean, when I hear you saying, which is it's funny because this applies to everything in life. What I hear you saying is everything in moderation, right? If you're super selfish, that doesn't work. If you're super selfless, it doesn't work. If you're super about your job, it doesn't. We have to be able to walk that line, which is, for many people, it's difficult. I would think, I'm actually going to propose this. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I actually think it's harder to maintain balance than it is to just go either way. I think it's so easy to say, you know what, I'm going to just throw everything out in the rearview mirror. I'm just going to just focus on work. I think that's so much easier than saying, okay, how do I balance work with my family, with myself, with my faith? Or it's so much easier, I'm just going to focus just on the faith. Don't care about the work. Don't want the family. Like, balance, not doing too much, not doing too little, is much more difficult than the latter. And I'm reading a book right now, which it's funny. I saw this. I started by watching this interview by Jordan Klepper and from Daily Show, and the guy who wrote the book, The Anxious Generation. Really great book thus far, and it's showing just how important it is that we got to slow down as people. Our youth, and you may have something to share about this, but our youth spending so much time on the internet, so much time on social media, so much time comparing themselves to others, not feeling good enough, anxiety rates going up, suicides going up, attempted suicide rate going up, like all these things. I think one of the main points, again, it's a great book, but also one of the main points, I think, is because we are allowing our technology to lead us versus us leading our technology. And I think that's the way we're going. And if someone doesn't do anything, if we don't intentionally try to think through how we manage and how we're going to be managing our lives and our systems over the next few years, we're going to be in a hurt place. And I would propose that, and then you and I can't even, or anyone here can't even imagine what the world's going to look like in 10 years, just because of how fast technology is evolving.
Yeah, I wanted to go to your point, and I love that word intentional, because I think balance is something that you have to intentionally strive to do. If you're not intentionally striving to be balanced, you're not going to achieve balance. But in the process of striving for balance, you have to assess yourself along the way. That may be quarterly, that may be annually, to see, was I balanced? It may be daily, it may be throughout the week. Because if you don't, you will never grow and thrive. And so I think a lot of individuals, and we can talk about, New Year's resolutions, everyone's desires to lose weight. And, you get into, February and everyone is backslid on that New Year's resolution because it became a little bit difficult. But if you are sticking to your regimen, if you are consistently weighing yourself, if you're counting your calories or your points, whatever system you are, the more days you win, more likely you're going to see your results that you are dreaming about or you have conceived that you want. So I feel if you want to be a balanced father, husband, mother, wife, leader, you have to have a scorecard that you're checking in on yourself to say, okay, I'm seeing progress. Because if you're aimlessly out there with goals, but no clear assessment as to where you're at, you're not going to achieve balance.
I completely agree with you. And so as someone who has backslid on the weight goal this year, it's actually very funny how we can be very committed to certain things. Like I don't think that most people are just not committed. I don't think that most people aren't disciplined. I believe that they're disciplined at things they want to be disciplined at. And they're not disciplined at things they don't want to be disciplined at. And for me, when it comes to work, I get stuff done. Like my clients are extremely happy. The podcast been running for 4 years. I got over 100, almost 140, 150 episodes at this point. Consistent. But when it comes down to my weight, man, it's really easy for me to have a bad day and be like, oh, let me get a bag of chips, man. I deserve this. How do you propose stopping yourself from breaking that consistency that's so important to us?
It's interesting because earlier today I was having a conversation with a colleague, and most people, when they are backsliding on this weight management, or maybe it's how do I carve out time for my family, how do I carve out time for my faith, or going on vacation, many people, Alex, will say, I don't have time. That is the number one excuse.
Which is BS.
That and as I was sharing with my colleague, it is not that you don't have time. Really what you're saying is not important enough for you to schedule time at the gym, or time with your family, or time with, with meditation or fasting or praying, whatever your faith may be. Because if you are intentional and it means a lot to you, you will find time to engage in those things you are passionate about.
Yeah.
Back when I was growing up, we talk about, and it's a lot different now because this was before all the binge watching of Netflix, really dating myself. But there were television shows that were appointment destination television. This is an appointment. Do not call me during this time because I'm going to be watching this show. And some people may have put it on their VCR to record, but then there were some people that they did not want to miss it live because they wanted to be around the water cooler the next day talking about it with their colleagues or their classmates.
When Survivor first came out.
Yes. So if it's something you're passionate about, you're going to find the time to get it done. And, if it's increasing sales, if you're in sales, you're going to make sure you're prospecting and making those calls because you want to see an increase in revenue. if you're not engaging in prospecting, you're not going to see increases in sales. And eventually, you may find your sales funnel drying up because you didn't take the effort to do the work.
So I'm still, again, personally, I can say it's important. You're right. I can say this is important. I get reminded about, I'm using my weight as an example. Is for everyone else. You can use whatever you want to use. I was out with my boy this past weekend, and he's 9 months at the time of this, 9 months and a half, 9 months, 3/4, something like that. And I was like, man, like this little boy is looking up to me, like he sees his father, and he's hopefully going to want to emulate certain things from me, right? Mm-hmm. And so the reason why I manage my organization the way I do, and I have my team structured the way we do, is because I want to make sure I always have time for my family. So, my biological father, he left when I was 3 days old, something like that. And so I spent the majority of my life trying to do well in the hopes that he would see value in me and then would want to have a relationship with me. And so, that there's so many conversations that we had about that, but that was the driving factor. And I'm like, no, I can't do this for my boy. And so I'm going to be around. That's not a question. Like I said, that's important to me. It's going to happen. The other piece though is like, man, like I don't want him to be, like, I've always had health issues. I have a chronic back pain. I talk about that in one of my speeches. Like, how do you, one of the reasons why you be very cognizant of your unconscious bias and whatnot is because you don't know someone else's experience. When people create events and that, I'm like, what about people who can't walk? What about people who can't stand for long periods of time? I'm one of them. Doesn't look like it, but I'm one of them. And so, like, I talk about this stuff and I'm like, I want him to have a healthier life than me. But for some reason, I can't put down the ice cream. And so it's important to me, but obviously, right, not that important to me. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I got to figure out how to make it that important to me without me getting diagnosed with diabetes or something like that. Because mm-hmm. That changes a lot of people's behavior. Many people, mm-hmm. not all, but, getting something like that changes behavior real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're speaking on behavioral modification, and you're right. It's either we're chasing towards something or away from something. So if you're talking about, not wanting to get diabetes, you're going away from that. But, if your inspiration is, I want to live long, you're kind of chasing toward that goal. So I do think that is really critical, is really understanding your motivation is something that can help all of us, and being honest with the things that motivate you. Some people will, I know we started talking about faith, but there are some people that will act humble, but they're really not humble people. They want to be the center of attention. They want that acclaim and that recognition and that acknowledgement, because that's what they thrive off of. So when they try to be humble, you're not really humble, and anyone who can sense inauthenticity can mm-hmm. pick up on that. So I think it's important that we understand our motivation, but then also you were talking about your spending time with your son. It's also critical as parents that we start to figure out how our children are motivated, because that helps us to be better parents. As a leader, understanding that what motivates the different people on your team completely different. You have some that are, motivated toward something, others that are motivated away from things. And so there's really no one size fits all in our leadership. We have to be willing to adapt our leadership style to the members of our team to coach them up in order for us to achieve success.
One that I want to call out that I think some people, not everyone, I think a lot of people, not as much in the up and coming generation, but many people believe that money is a driver. And I think that is complete. Unfortunately, I think you're mistaken. If you think money is what you're after, then you're wrong. And I would say you don't know what Dr. Carter's saying is your real motivation, because to have money means nothing. It's what you can buy with that money, right?
Mm,
Is whether you're buying your time or you're buying an experience or you're buying this or you're buying that, is those things have a much greater, I think, connection to what you're actually motivated by versus the money. I think we have to be very intentional remembering that those two things are separate. Money is just the means of getting what it is you actually want. It's a very important means,
mm.
but remember, I think we should, because otherwise we can get caught in the game of just working, building, and not doing anything with it because we think, oh, we got to have more money, but that's not what's going to make you happy.
Mhm. Yeah, and also money can be a reflection of competitive nature. I remember when I was in the classroom, uh, and I would teach, I would have, for those that finished number one in my class, I would give a monetary reward. But part of the reason why students did so high in my class, did very well in my class, to the point some people thought it was grade inflation. No, it became a competition. It
Mm-hmm.
became a competition to be number one,
Yep.
to say, you know what, I did this. I outshined the other 35 students in the class, and I ran this race, and I ran it to win. So to your point, no, the money is a symbol, or symbolic for many
Mm-hmm.
different things that can be motivating you.
Yep.
That, if you dig a little bit deeper, then you come to realize, wait, it is really not the money. When we talk about sales, there are many organizations that have what they'll call their President's Club. And if you make President's Club, yes, you're making it rain. But
Mm-hmm.
many times people want to be in the President's Club because that's an
Yep.
exclusive club available to the top performers within that organization. And people want to be able to stunt and say, I made it here. You're not at this level yet.
So I know you got to wrap up soon. I want to ask one last question before I open the floor for you. So in my line of work, I do a lot of speaking to senior executive room, people who are about to become senior executives, leadership teams and whatnot, about how to reach success. And I also, because it's something I'm really passionate about, I work with colleges and universities as well. I was just hired to speak at Johns Hopkins Business School. I just spoke at one of their big events, Yale, 2 weeks ago. And I love speaking with them because, again, if we can teach those young people the skills they need to be successful at the executive level now, when I say young people, quote unquote, the spectrum is very diverse when we talk about those students. We can teach them how to be senior executives and successful now. Then when they're in those positions, it's a breeze, right? My question for you is, you are around this next generation of leaders. What do you feel like they are needing to help them reach that level of success or prepare to reach that level of success?
That is a really good question. And what I can say, it's people love to talk about the it factor. And I don't care what the institution is. It can be UCLA, it can be San Jose City, it can be SC, it can be Harvard, it can be Stanford, it can be Yale. The top students will shine at any institution because it's something within them that drives them to be great and to be outstanding. I think for a young person who's coming up, what I would tell them is do not cut corners. Be consistent, be persistent. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed when you're not reaping the rewards as quickly as you would like, because eventually, once you have done all the work, then you will reap. And and I'm using that as an acronym for rapid elevation, achievement, and progress. A lot of times people will think it's overnight, but it's not overnight. It was the hours of training and preparation that prepared you to reap, to have rapid elevation, achievement, and progress in a way in which people are like, man, this guy came out of nowhere. No, you did not see me when I was laying out my goals and my strategic plan and putting in the hours and the time to get to the point where I'm at today. So I will say to anyone, even those who are older, who's like, man, it's just not coming as quickly as I would like. Continue to do what you're doing. Trust me, someone is paying attention to you. You may not know they're paying attention to you, but they're paying attention and they're watching you. And when the time is right, those doors and windows of opportunity will open up.
Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Carter. I appreciate it, brother. I gotta open the floor for you. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience as we begin to wrap up?
I think the one thing I would say is that they can find me on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, just type in my name. Social media, they can find me at Dr. J.D. Carter. You'll see my face. If you want to be encouraged, you want to be inspired, feel free to connect with me. And truly, Alex, I do thank you for this time. I do thank you for opening up your platform. I hope that something that was spoken of today resonated with someone. If you're in the Southern California area and you want to, worship with me and my church and our congregation, you can join us at Greater Blessings. We're in the city of San Bernardino. Come and go from blessings to greater blessings.
You are the first person I have heard. One, thank you so much for everything you just shared. I know I got an amen somewhere in the comment section. Someone make sure you guys put it there. And two, you're one of the first people who actually just said you can find me on X. So everyone always says, Twitter, X, the one that used to be like so confident. Thank you so much, sir. Everyone, you know where I'm going with this. If you found anything of value from today's episode, which I know you did, don't look back, reach back, bring someone else to the table. Make sure you share this interview with them. Click that like, click the subscribe. Make sure you comment, because the more you interact with the show, the more people get to be more people to see and experience what you just saw and experienced and heard. So thank you so much. If you're looking for a speaker, you know who to find. This is alextremble.com. If you haven't read my new book, Relationships That Work, you can find on Amazon today, Relationships That Work. As always, I encourage everyone, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.